Ever feel that chilling prickle on the back of your neck? That instinct whispering danger when everything seems normal on the surface? We're taught to trust our gut. But what happens when that gut feeling clashes with what your mind tells you is just being polite, just family, or just normal? Have you ever been in a situation where something just felt off? This is the story of a day that started with Princess Tiaras and ended with a terrifying encounter. A day that tested a young girl's instincts and changed her understanding of the world forever. Prepare to step back into childhood, but this time, through a lens of chilling suspense, because sometimes, the most terrifying monsters don't wear masks. They wear smiles and pretend to be family. 6th grade. Just the word itself tasted like lukewarm milk and homework assignments. My little sister, Lily, bless her heart, was turning 5, a monumental occasion in the kingdom of sparkly pink and make-believe princesses. For her, it was the day dreams were made of. For me, it was torture. My mom, bless her heart too, had gone all out. She'd booked us a party at the Enchanted Teacup, a place that reeked of vanilla frosting and the faint, yet persistent, odor of desperation from overworked party entertainers. It was the kind of place where glitter was considered a food group and the decibel level was permanently set to screaming toddlers having meltdowns. Lily, of course, was in heaven. She was decked out in a Cinderella gown that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe, complete with a plastic tiara that threatened to dethrone her at any moment. She flitted around, a tiny, joyous monarch in her kingdom of sugared delights, utterly oblivious to my internal turmoil. My internal turmoil, you ask? It was epic. At 12, almost 13, I was on the precarious edge of adolescence, teetering between childhood and, well, whatever came after childhood that wasn't quite grown up yet either. Participating in princess games? Interacting with fake princesses who probably secretly yearned for a cigarette and a stiff drink after their shift? Unthinkable. My burgeoning cool persona, carefully constructed and fiercely defended, would crumble into dust. My strategy for survival? Dissociation and my trusty Nintendo DS. Armed with these weapons of mass boredom deflection, I found a relatively secluded chair in the hallway just outside the main party room. It was a no-man's land, a quiet buffer zone between the princess pandemonium and the real world, such as it was. Here, in this lonely outpost, I could retreat into the pixelated adventures of my digital world and pretend that the sugar-fueled chaos next door didn't exist. I was deeply engrossed in catching a particularly elusive Pokemon. I think it was a Mewtwo, if I remember correctly. When a shadow fell over my DS screen, annoyance flickered through me. Whoever dared to interrupt my escapism would face my preteen wrath, or at least a withering glare. I looked up, ready to unleash my patented leave me alone stare, and found myself face to face with a woman I'd never seen before in my life. She was nondescript, average height, average build, brown hair pulled back in a low ponytail. She wore jeans and a plain, slightly wrinkled, button-down shirt. Nothing particularly striking, nothing memorable, except for her eyes. They were intense. Too intense, maybe, like they were searching for something, or someone. "Hey," she said, her voice a little too loud for the quiet hallway, a little too enthusiastic. "Hey, you're Gloria's kid, right?" Gloria. My mom's name. It was unusual, certainly, for a stranger to know my mom's first name, especially in this context. But then again, maybe she was a friend of my mom's from work, someone I just hadn't met yet. My mom worked in a big office, lots of people. I shrugged internally. Kids in my family were always getting cornered by distant relatives we'd never seen before, or hadn't seen since we were in diapers. These kinds of encounters were normal. Sort of. "Yeah," I mumbled, not taking my eyes off my DS screen just yet. Mewtwo was not going to catch itself. "Gloria's my mom." The woman's face brightened, a smile stretching across her lips, a little too wide, a little too forced. "I knew it. You look just like her." "I'm your Aunt Sarah," she announced, as if revealing a long-awaited secret. "Sarah, you probably don't remember me, honey. It's been ages. You were just a tiny little thing the last time we saw each other." "Aunt Sarah?" My mom had sisters, sure. Aunt Carol, Aunt Susan. No Aunt Sarah. But maybe a cousin of my mom's? My family tree was a sprawling, tangled mess. It was entirely possible there was an Aunt Sarah lurking somewhere in its branches, someone I'd simply never encountered. And honestly, this Aunt Sarah act wasn't entirely unbelievable. She had that slightly too familiar way of speaking, the kind of overly enthusiastic tone relatives often adopted when addressing children they barely knew. The way she was talking about how big I'd gotten. Yep, textbook distant relative interaction. I finally paused my game, reluctantly dragging myself back to reality. "Oh," I said, trying to sound at least vaguely polite. "Hi. My goodness, look how you've grown," Sarah exclaimed, stepping closer, invading my personal space just a little too much. Her eyes, those intense eyes, were fixed on me, scrutinizing me like I was some kind of specimen. "You were just this high," she gestured vaguely towards her knee, "the last time I saw you. And you're in 6th grade now, right? How's school?" See? Textbook. The "you've grown so much" comment, the generic "how's school" question. This had to be some distant relative. It was annoying, yes, but not alarming. Just awkward. The kind of awkward family interaction you just had to grin and bear. I gave her the usual bland answers. School was fine. 6th grade was okay. I liked reading, a partial truth. I did like reading, when it wasn't assigned. She nodded along, her smile never wavering, those intense eyes never leaving my face. "Well," Sarah said, leaning in conspiratorially, her voice dropping to a stage whisper, "Aunt Sarah brought a little something special for the birthday girl. A big present." She paused dramatically. "A dollhouse. The biggest dollhouse you've ever seen. It's in my car, but it's really heavy. And, she lowered her voice even further, "I also brought another cake. Just for you. A special cake. And," she paused again, her smile widening even more, "if that was even possible, if you help me carry the dollhouse from the car, you can have the very first slice of the cake." Dollhouse? Cake? Now that was interesting. Lily was obsessed with dollhouses. And cake, well, who didn't like cake? Especially birthday cake. And the promise of the first slice. That was a pretty tempting offer, even for a jaded 6th grader trying to maintain her cool. My brain started to do the mental calculations. Dollhouse for Lily, cake for me, just for helping carry something. It sounded nice. Too nice. Maybe? Nah. Probably just Aunt Sarah being aunt-like. Relatives were weird, right? They did weirdly generous things sometimes. And okay, maybe, just maybe, a tiny part of me, a very, very tiny part, was curious about this huge dollhouse and this special cake. And yeah, maybe, just maybe, the lure of the first slice was appealing. Besides, it was boring in the hallway. Anything was better than staring at my DS screen all afternoon. Helping Aunt Sarah for a few minutes couldn't hurt. Right? Wrong. So incredibly, terrifyingly wrong. But at the time, standing there in that vanilla-scented hallway, with the princess party noises muffled behind the closed door, with this smiling, intense-eyed woman promising dollhouses and cake, it didn't feel wrong. Not yet. Just a little odd. But mostly just a slightly awkward, slightly weird family interaction. Nothing to be alarmed about. Just family. And that, I realize now, was the mistake. The fatal flaw in my reasoning. I trusted her. I trusted her because she was a woman. I trusted her because she said she was family. I trusted her because I was taught to be polite to adults, to be helpful, to be trusting, especially of family. And that trust, that blind, unquestioning, childlike trust, almost cost me everything. "Okay," I said, finally relenting, pushing down the faint whisper of unease that was starting to prickle at the edges of my mind. "Okay, I'll help." Sarah's smile widened even further, if that was even possible. It was starting to feel less like a friendly smile and more like a predator's grin. But I didn't recognize that then. I was still too caught up in the idea of cake and dollhouses and escaping hallway boredom. "Wonderful," Sarah exclaimed, clapping her hands together a little too enthusiastically. "Let's go. It's just out back. Come on, honey." She turned and headed towards a door at the end of the hallway, a door I hadn't really noticed before. It was just there, a plain, unmarked door, blending into the wall. I followed her, my DS still clutched in my hand, the faint prickle of unease now growing into a dull throb in my stomach. We went through the door and stepped out into the back alley. It was a stark contrast to the sugary sweetness of the tea room. Gray asphalt, overflowing dumpsters, the smell of stale grease and exhaust fumes. Definitely not enchanted. Sarah led me around the back of the building, towards the car. A dark sedan, parked in the alley, engine running. Running? That was weird. Why was the car running? Here we are, Sarah announced, gesturing towards the car with another one of those overly enthusiastic smiles. Just in the trunk. Come on, help me open it up. She walked towards the trunk of the car. I hesitated. Something was definitely wrong. The running car, the back alley, the sudden shift from Aunt Sarah enthusiasm to something else. Something colder, harder, in her eyes. And then I saw him, the man in the driver's seat. He was still, unmoving. His head was turned slightly, just enough for me to see his profile. He was looking straight ahead, not at me, not at Sarah, just straight ahead. His face was blank, expressionless, like a mannequin, like he wasn't even really there. The prickle of unease in my stomach turned into a sharp stab of fear. This wasn't right. None of this was right. Sarah must have sensed my hesitation, my sudden shift from mild curiosity to outright alarm. She turned back to me, her smile faltering, her eyes narrowing just slightly. "Oh, that's just your Uncle Dennis," she said quickly, too quickly. Her voice was still overly cheerful, but now there was an edge to it, a hint of impatience. "Uncle Dennis. He's just waiting. He doesn't want to come in. Come on, honey. Let's hurry with the dollhouse before the cake frosting melts. You want that first slice, don't you?" Uncle Dennis? Another uncle I'd never heard of? And why was he just sitting there, like a statue, in a running car in a back alley? And why didn't she ask Uncle Dennis to help her carry the dollhouse? If it was so heavy, and why was the car still running? Why didn't they just park? There were empty spots right there. My mind raced, trying to process, trying to rationalize, trying to find some explanation, any explanation that would make this feel normal. But there was nothing. Just red flags. Blaring, screaming, sirens of red flags going off in my head. My gut, that amazing, intuitive, primal gut, was screaming danger, danger, danger. I froze. I stopped walking. I stood my ground, planted my feet firmly on the gray asphalt of the back alley. I stared at Sarah, and then at the unmoving figure in the driver's seat, and then back at Sarah. "No," I said. My voice was small, barely a whisper, but it was firm. "No, I don't want to go to the car." Sarah's smile vanished completely. It was like a mask had been ripped away, revealing the face underneath, a face that was hard, angry, cold. And those eyes, those intense eyes, they were no longer searching. They were predatory. Her tone changed too. The fake cheerfulness was gone, replaced by something sharp, something cold, something menacing. "Come on," she said, her voice low, demanding now, no longer pleading. "Come on, get in the car. We don't have all day." "No," I repeated, louder this time, my voice trembling slightly, but still firm. "No, I'm not going. I want to go back inside." I took a step back, away from Sarah, away from the car, back towards the door to the tea room. Sarah took a step forward, blocking my path. "Don't be silly," she said, her voice still low, still hard. "Just come to the car. It'll just take a minute. We have the dollhouse, we have the cake. Just come on." "No," I said again, even louder this time, my voice starting to rise. Fear was starting to override politeness. Instinct was taking over reason. "No, I'm not going." I tried to back away again, to squeeze past her, back towards the door. Sarah reached out, her hand snaking out, grabbing my arm. She gripped my jacket sleeve, her fingers digging into the fabric. "Come on, just come on," she hissed, her voice tight with fury now. "Don't be stupid. Just get in the car." Her grip tightened. She was pulling me, trying to drag me towards the car, towards Uncle Dennis, towards whatever they had planned for me in that running car in the back alley. Panic flared. Terror surged. This was it. This was really happening. This wasn't some awkward family interaction gone wrong. This was something else. Something dangerous. Something evil. I didn't think. I didn't reason. I just reacted. Instinctively, primal fear driving me. I yanked my arm back, hard, pulling away from her grip. Her fingers slipped on the fabric of my jacket sleeve. I twisted away from her, putting distance between us. "Stop it," I yelled, my voice cracking with fear and adrenaline. "Stop. Leave me alone." Sarah's face contorted with rage. Her eyes, those terrifying, predatory eyes, narrowed to slits. For a split second, I thought Uncle Dennis was going to get out of the car. I saw his head move, shift slightly, like he was about to open the door. My heart hammered in my chest. My breath hitched in my throat. I braced myself for what? I didn't know, but I knew it was going to be bad. Very bad. And then, just when I thought everything was about to go horribly, irrevocably wrong, I heard it. My name, ringing out, loud and clear, cutting through the stale air of the back alley, shattering the tense silence. "Gloria! Gloria! Where are you?" My mom and Aunt Carol, their voices, loud, frantic, calling my name. They were inside the tea room, calling for me. They were looking for me. Relief flooded through me, so intense it almost buckled my knees. Salvation. Rescue. They were here. They were coming. Sarah froze. She stiffened, her head snapping towards the sound of my mom and aunt's voices. Her eyes widened, not with fear, but with anger, frustration, like her plan, whatever it was, had just been ruined. She hesitated for a split second, glancing back at me, her face a mask of fury, her eyes burning with hatred. Then, she turned, abruptly, decisively, and darted towards the car. She practically dove into the passenger seat, slamming the door shut. The car lurched forward, tires screeching on the asphalt, and sped away, disappearing around the corner of the building, leaving me standing alone in the back alley, trembling, gasping for breath, my heart still pounding like a trapped bird in my chest. I didn't wait. I didn't think. I just ran. I ran back to the door, back to the tea room, back to safety. I burst through the back door, stumbling, blinking in the sudden brightness of the hallway. And there they were, my mom and Aunt Carol, standing just inside the doorway, their faces etched with worry, their eyes searching, frantic. They saw me, and relief washed over their faces, mirroring my own. "Gloria!" my mom cried, rushing towards me, pulling me into a tight, suffocating hug. "Gloria, honey, are you okay? Where were you? We were so worried." "Mom," I gasped, clinging to her, burying my face in her shoulder, still shaking, still terrified. "Mom, they tried to take me." I poured out the story, the words tumbling out in a rush, disjointed, breathless, still choked with fear. Aunt Sarah, Uncle Dennis, the dollhouse, the cake, the running car, the back alley, the fear, the yelling, the escape. My mom listened, her hug tightening, her hand stroking my hair, her face growing paler with each word I spoke. Aunt Carol listened too, her eyes narrowed, her lips pressed together in a thin, grim line. When I finally finished, breathless and trembling, my mom pulled back slightly, holding me at arm's length, her eyes searching my face. "Oh, honey," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Oh, Gloria, I'm so sorry. I'm so glad you're okay." Aunt Carol, ever the pragmatist, immediately went into action. "We need to tell the tea room staff," she said, her voice firm, decisive. "Right now, we need to make sure everyone is safe." And that's exactly what they did. The tea room went into lockdown. The princess party abruptly ended. All the children were gathered into one room, under the watchful eyes of the staff and the increasingly worried parents. The festive atmosphere evaporated, replaced by a heavy blanket of fear and uncertainty. The police came. Two uniformed officers, their faces serious, their voices calm and reassuring, but their eyes held a knowing gravity, a grim understanding of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of everyday life. I told them everything. Everything I could remember about Sarah and Dennis. What they looked like, what they said, what they did, the car, the alley, the fear. The officers listened patiently, taking notes, asking questions, their expressions remaining neutral, professional. They promised to investigate, to follow up, to get back to us if they found anything. But they never did. We never heard anything back from the police about Sarah and Dennis. No updates, no leads, no arrests. As far as we know, they vanished. Poof, gone. Like they were ghosts or figments of a nightmare. I still don't know how Sarah knew my mom's name, how they found me, how they even knew we were going to be at that tea room that day. It was like they were watching us, waiting, planning. To this day, the questions linger, unanswered, unsettling. What would have happened if I had gone to the car? If I hadn't listened to my gut? If my mom and aunt hadn't called out my name at just the right moment? I try not to think about it. I try to push it to the back of my mind, to bury it under layers of everyday life. But sometimes, late at night, when the house is quiet and dark, and the shadows stretch long and menacing, I remember Sarah's face, those intense, predatory eyes, and the chilling certainty that I had narrowly escaped something truly terrible. And I'm grateful. Grateful for my instincts, grateful for my mom and aunt, grateful to be alive. Grateful that I listened to that tiny whisper of fear that saved me from who knows what. From a fate I still don't dare to fully imagine. And I learned a lesson that day, a harsh, terrifying lesson that no sixth grader should ever have to learn. That not everyone who smiles at you is friendly, not everyone who calls you honey is kind, and not everyone who claims to be family actually is. Sometimes, the monsters are real, and sometimes, they were the faces of strangers pretending to be aunts and uncles, luring you with promises of dollhouses and cake, waiting in running cars and back alleys, ready to snatch you away into the darkness. And so, the mystery of Sarah and Dennis remains unsolved, a chilling reminder of the unseen dangers that can lurk in the most ordinary of places. What were their true intentions? Were they part of a larger network? Did they ever target other children? These questions haunt me still, whispering in the quiet moments, serving as a constant, if unwelcome, companion. Perhaps, in time, more pieces of this unsettling puzzle will emerge. Perhaps not, but the chilling truth remains. Innocence can be a fragile shield, and sometimes, the greatest threats come cloaked in deceptive familiarity. This story, though deeply personal, is a stark reminder of the importance of trusting our instincts and remaining vigilant, even in seemingly safe environments. Has anything similar ever happened to you? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, give it a like and subscribe for more chilling tales. And stay tuned, because sometimes the echoes of the past refuse to stay silent. Could there be more to the story of Sarah and Dennis? What if they were not just random predators, but something far more sinister? Let me know if you'd like to delve deeper into this chilling mystery in part 2. Your comments and engagement will help decide the next chapter.